yourself, remember, darling, don't look for me, I'm just a story you've been told. So let's pretend a little longer, 'cause when we're gone, everything goes on. You were staring at the window, and I said, I wanna take you to the sea. And when I'm better, we'll do everything. I gotta stop making promises I can't keep. But if I was gone tomorrow, won't the waves crash on? Is it selfish that I'm happy as we pass the setting sun? Someday I'll be overcast, but you won't have to cry, 'cause we'll do the grieving while I'm by your side. I said, don't try to make yourself remember, darling, don't look for me, I'm just a story you've been told. So let's pretend a little longer, 'cause when we're gone, everything goes on. And I'm so scared of getting used to this. All the vines that keep you tethered in your room. Well, someday both of us are leaving here, but for now I'll just bring this sea to you. Will you meet me in the daylight like we did before? Then I felt you on my shoulder, and you weren't suffering anymore. You said, I'm sorry that you worried, but don't apologize. I told you to forget me, but you stayed by my side when I said, don't try to make yourself remember, darling, don't look for me, I'm just a story you've been told. So let's pretend a little longer, and when we're gone, everything goes on.
Welcome everybody to Aegis Esports, and well, today we're in week 4, and this is play-ins. It's been quite a stressful few month for everyone, and we're out of group stages now, and we're finding who will be our top 16. And today I am actually joined with Spider Mansion. Hello, Spider Mansion, and are you ready to see these games for today?
Yeah, really excited. We got a lot of great teams still left, and a lot of teams fighting for that play-in spot into the playoffs next week. I'm really excited to see who makes it through the Swiss.
Exactly. And today we actually have TSP playing once again, and they will be versing um, Void Netta, also kind of known as OTK. And these teams have played before. They're got some top competitors. You've got probably, I think, one of the most naturally gifted players, Filthy Gamer Weeb, who is in TSP. And then you have other really solid ones like Void, who's kind of the standout from Void Netta. It's in the name, and it will be a tough one, especially with play-ins being, it has to be a backseat collab type set. And we'll be getting to see that probably right after we get through the deck list there.
Yeah.
But before that, let's probably just maybe talk about the few weeks of Aegis. Spider-Man, I know you were part of TKG, and how did this week kind of wrap in from the other few seasons? And how was your experience kind of playing in this league?
Yeah, I mean, I love playing in this league. It's really fun to just like get a couple friends together and just like scrim like and test lineups, and it gets you really ready for the competitive season, with the open tomorrow and Sunday. Um the season being a lot shorter, but 3 out of 4 teams moving into this play-in stage has felt like way more like exciting. Like there's a lot on the line, even if you just lose one match. So getting through that regular season into this play-in stage, it's a really neat new like twist on the old format.
Yeah, I think this type of play-ins is, even though it was different from the last time they kind of implemented it, I really enjoy this style rather than King of the Hill because it kind of adds a new way of trying to make this, backseating collab be more of a thing, and you get really exciting games, and it really does break down who the top 8 should be because traditionally Swiss is one of the best ways to kind of do that. And when you have King of the Hill, you could say, oh yeah, there was a few variables, maybe they just got lucky with their prep stage, but you can't really have those excuses, and that's why it makes something like this so interesting and, like you were saying, very intense. Because today will be intense. We'll see a lot of heartbreak and agony, and we will also be seeing Deckless here and Team Space Poggers as Garen Kaiser kind of popped out of the woodworks and back into the meta again, and it's kind of just a champion strength deck. But Spider-Man, do you want to run through kind of what this deck does and what it tries to beat?
Yeah, I mean, this deck is like looking to target a lot of the like small stuff in the meta. So like the Tristana piles, the fastest like TF, not TF, Samira Fizz decks. Just trying to like get as many keywords on the board and then Kaisa and kind of slam you. Also with these 3 champion strengths, I think from the Mastering Runeterra tournament last week, we saw 2 different versions of Kaisa, one with Garen that didn't have champion strength and one with Akshan that did. This version's kind of going the best of both worlds here, getting these big evolve units and then just a big board of them and smacking you twice in one turn with his champion strength.
Yeah, and you kind of either run, Jarvan or Garen in this, and they kind of do similar things. Garen, weirdly enough, actually, it does help your board a lot better, and it is kind of an alternate way to work with Kaiser that kind of just follow ups, prior to that champion strength, and get that alternate win con going. And unlike Jarvan, sure, you can't really challenge things, very fast and get things off the way. You still have some removal, and just like if you have that kind of Garen a bit earlier, you can kind of mitigate things. And yeah, like you were saying, it works a lot better against Tristana in that sense. And yeah, it looks pretty standard. You have things like Form Up, you have Blinding Assault, Chain Vest, probably one of the best combat tricks, I would say, honestly, especially with Kaiser. And then you just have, your staples like a Rider Negation that makes, that Kaiser being a win con even more securely.
Yeah, and those Rite of Negations, those counter spells are really, really good into the meta right now. What with, opposing champion strengths, opposing powder pandemoniums, um, even chrono breaks in echo decks that are floating around. There's a lot of things you want to be able to deny, and just the threat of having one is really, really sending can strike a lot of fear in. Like, can I rip this big spell and waste my turn?
We are into, well, a Tristana deck, and we were kind of talking about, Kaiser being good into this, but Team Space Foggers also decides to bring it, and it's kind of what people have been going for. They've been kind of going for a Tristana, Samira lineup with a third deck, because those are the best decks in the game, and Team Space Foggers has opted for Bilgewater, and wow, this is, I would say standard, but they've brought two cards here that is not really standard in Signposts. A really nice kind of medical to this, linear-ish deck, and I really like the extra interaction that this Bilgewater deck has been kind of going for at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I quite like these Bilgewater builds. I think they have a lot more play to them than you'd expect from these like Bandle Swarm piles. And the King's Court, generating a prize fight every time you summon a unit, and those prize fights just being like a new version of Ravenous Flock, which is no longer in the standard format. It's really great card, and just using it to push extra impact damage can just be a huge blowout. And I agree, I quite like those signposts trying to flip the mirror match with the Demacia deck on its head, blow out those opponent champion strengths.
Yep, and yeah, otherwise it's kind of typical. There's nothing really, crazy, I would say. I feel like when you have lists like this, it's either what version you kind of run, either the Demacia, the Bilgewater, or the Noxus. But the Noxus one's kind of fallen out because Bilgewater one has found to be superior thanks to kind of, Infinity running with it. And now we are into the last one from Team Space Poggers, and it shouldn't really be a surprise. It is Fizz Samira, the most brought deck this week, and there's a reason for it. It's kind of nuts, Oh, sure, they nerfed all the elusive stuff, and then it's just what it was supposed to be, which is a Powder Pandemonium deck, and it's pretty nasty. Spider-Man, do you have any kind of thoughts on how this new iteration has gone, and do you like the list that Team Space Poggers has brought?
Yeah, I think this is basically the exact list I'm playing right now. I love this deck. Just going for these 12 1-drops, just trying to get on the board early, stack up as many plunder triggers as possible, and then just blowing your opponent out with a Powder Pandemonium. Just like this, new version of aggro. Now that Decimate's not in the format, now that Rearguard's not in the format, going for this kind of zoo aggro, get as many plunder triggers as possible, and then burn the opponent out. So it's really been working, and people at post patch, people have been testing other decks. It's nice to see Fizz Samira back in the meta.
Yep, and well, we are now on to Void Netta, and we do see their Fizz Samira list, and there is a few changes here, and it's kind of keeping what initially was in the Samira Fizz initially, and that was the Infiners. And they're trying to just have those for a simple few reasons. One, it kind of gives you a bit more, leeway to kind of draw into it, because a lot of the times you can kind of have a lot of gas and nothing out. And even though people kind of say, oh, but you have to kind of diverse your line to a point where you might hold off, it shouldn't be too much of a worry, because this deck should be kind of a high-paced, power spike tempo deck, and Inferno just allows you to be more consistent with that.
Yeah, I definitely don't hate keeping the Infernas in, going for that more tempo game plan, making sure you're able to find the cards you need while still going for this, three Powder Pandemoniums and 2 Monkey Business. Trying to just make sure you get those plunder procs, make sure you get that burn damage, and just making sure you get to be a little bit more consistent. You don't have to fizzle out.
And we are into, I would say, a weird echo list. It's an echo with no other champions, and you're not even running the keeper. You're running like Castaway. Wow, this is the most funkiest thing I've ever seen, and I feel like it's a bit weird, because the main reason why people are bringing Echo now is to actually be good into Samira Fizz, and like you remove all the stuff you're supposed to be good with it into the deck, and you just like go, oh, okay, I'm not doing much. Like, I'm not having Jinx that kind of beats up Fizz, and I'm not on Free Voices of Risen without no Secret Keepers. Like, what am I actually doing? You kind of ruin all of what makes Echo good and just made it bad.
Yeah, I am. I'm agreeing. I'm quite skeptical of this list. Cutting Voice of the Risen down to two is a very interesting choice. The typical playstyle of these Echo Shurima decks, whether it was Old Zillion or Jinx or Secret Keeper, you want to get this wide board, do an easy level, and then just buff everything with Voice. This deck, just from the look of it, we're looking at a very all in on Echo deck with three of these Heedless Resurrections, trying to just make sure you get these Chrono Breaks. I'm interested to see if part of what they want to do here is cast Echo Spell. Maybe that's part of what they're looking for. They don't main deck it, but with these castaways, you definitely are looking to turn Heedless Resurrection on. I'm very interested in what the game plan is and how that's going to play out.
Yeah, and I feel like just before we get into this one, I think we should maybe give it some credit. Even though the Echo deck looks a bit weird, like sure you're not running the stuff and like, not a free Risens, it's kind of funky. Like you are going for these double Echo lines with like Chrono Rate, sure it's all in, but if we see that happen, it would be kind of like really kind of cool. So like
Yeah,
I do want to kind of see it if they do keep it up as Team Space Focus. But we are
absolutely.
now seeing somewhat of a mirror. This is the third list from Void Netta, and it kind of comes down to bringing the same stuff, but they are running one job and giving a bit of burstish interaction. Also, somewhat helping actually. I'm pretty sure it helps Kaiser level up, unless I'm crazy with barrier, or is that not a proper
Yeah,
keyword?
no,
Am I
that'll work.
crazy?
That barrier should
Okay.
work. They also run the Green Fang Warden as an extra source of barrier, which I quite like. They're running Domination to try and get a couple, good rolls on Husks. They've got the Genevieve Elmhart, which I quite like. The thing that might be a concern in the mirror is that this version's not on the champion strength. Um, this version looks like it'll probably flip Kaisa a bit easier because it's got more of these units to try and turbo evolve, but it doesn't have as much as of the top end.
And we are into these bands, and well, we've got two of the similar decks, and then Tristana up to Echo. Usually, kind of when you hit mirrors like this, you normally just like either ban the best deck or you just ban the outlier. But I'm trying to think of this situation because of like the Echo being brought here is so weird that it's not actually good into Samira. You probably keep it up. What do you think, Spy
Yeah,
Mansion?
yeah, I would agree. I don't think they want. I think because the Echo list is so different, and doesn't have those backup win conditions, I would guess that TSP leaves it up and probably goes for a Kaisa ban, even though they're pretty favored into that mirror. Alternatively, they could go for a Samira ban, even though their Kaisa deck is pretty favored into it. But I would definitely expect them not to ban the Echo deck.
Well, and we see the bans here, and it is actually, yeah, like you're saying, the Samira Fizz ban and then the Kaiser ban from Void Netta. And wow, this is going to be, quite an interesting matchup. We've got actually a bit of diversity now, which is really funny. They just got two of the mirrors out, and now we actually have all diverse decks.
Yep.
That's pretty hilarious, and I am actually really excited to see how this will go.
Agreed. Yeah, and like since banning the Samira deck is interesting, it's very possible that TSP had this read that they would Void would read ban Kaisa, and they would lose their favorable matchup. So I quite like this ban, and it's going to, yeah, like you said, it's going to give us some really interesting matchups to watch.
Right. I'm just like before we get into the game as well, I know we talked a bit about like Filthy Gamer Weeb from TSP, but I think we should maybe mention about the other players as well. Like we have quite the star-studded like team somewhat. Like even though they aren't as recognized as much, you've got Hawk, who's been a multiple top cutter and is a big fan of Nightfall, and then you have Mathonical, which is heads playoffs. What I think 2 times already with other teams, and has top cutted as well. I'm pretty sure, and probably enough of that because we are into the game now, and we actually have Echo here with the Samira Fizz, and this is kind of a hand for at least Samira at the moment, and Echo a bit empty, might need to find some more predicts.
Yeah, agreed. I wouldn't be surprised if they pitch this Echo back just to look for more predicts and find things. I'm really interested to see that they kept this quicksand here. Maybe looking to blow out a fearsome unit or blow out Samira.
Yeah, I think like it was probably just at the start, but wow, this is okay. I really hope. Why did they? Okay, I understand. Like I understand throwing the Echo, but I also feel like your hand was somewhat awkward. That maybe you wanted to find more predicts and keep the Echo anyway. Because
Yeah.
Echo is somewhat important, but it's relatively fine to throw it. I just feel like with that hand, it was kind of weird. You wanted maybe some substance, and you couldn't really rely on finding as much predicts that could go into it. But either way, they do kind of now snowball out, and they do have the 1 to 2 with these double predicts, and Team Space Pog is really just holding out. They're doing something really smart. They are not really going early with these 1-drops and putting pressure because they understand that they will get chumped later. And they really want to focus for the Samira to kind of pop off. And they have the insurance to do that. The only real way for that to be a problem is actually, Mystic. And if they can kind of play around this quicksand here, the Samira, if it does kind of just steer the game into Team Space Pogger's favor almost insanely well.
Yeah, this is looking, like pretty strong already for TSP. I really like that they're holding this, if that they're looking like they're holding the Samira back, like you said, not just throw it into a quicksand or a scrying sands, because the Samira is going to be really valuable down the line in trying to like get several attack turns or trying to just like pick off this board so that Chrono Break is not really particularly useful.
Yeah, it's like it's so smart because they understand that they're holding up free money here, and like literally, if the Samira just flips and they can't really deal with it, it's literally just over. And
Yeah.
there's multiple ways for kind of Void Netters to deal with that. Like you do have these scrying sands as well that can kind of just go, oh, Samira's dead, and like I'm kind of chilling now. But they just ignore all of that here, and this is kind of crazy. So
I think this is interesting, right? Because if we see a scrying sands here, right, like we can blow that out with the all out that's now turned on. That unless they block with the 2/3 here, yep. So we still lose to the scrying sands, but it's not terrible, right? We still don't lose our Samira. She still stays alive. So it's not a terrible play. And if they quicksand here, they're not predicting this turn, and they don't get their Echo on 4. So we're saying we can just play this all out, slow our opponent down. We're stacking our plunder procs. We're keeping Samira.
right, I don't think it's like that horrible, but you kind of run into the problem now of if Mystic was in hand, you can actually deal with Samira,
Yeah.
and like what does this really accomplish, right? Like, sure, it got a Scrying Sands out, but alternatively, you could say that Scrying Sands actually benefits them.
Yeah,
Like,
and now if they just open Mystic Shot, we're in a really rough spot because we can't get the Samira flipped. I would expect
Yeah.
to see them flip the Samira first prio, with this flare, and then maybe the Jagged Butcher, the Jagged Taskmaster.
And even then, you can still Mystic it. It is actually just weak enough. Like, you literally dwindle it down to the point where this could be a possibility, and it could literally be the decider here with that. Like, Samira being... okay.
Yeah, this is rough.
I kind of, like, fumbled there because I was like, what are we doing here? But, yeah,
I like this
Renetta takes
Mystic.
it back.
Yeah, I think
do
this
as well.
Mystic is right. I like taking the priority away.
I think, okay, like, if we would be optimal enough, I think maybe trying to attack first might be genuinely better, because you leave it to a development, and if that development is something that you don't really want to trade into, you lose potential damage. But outside of that, like, I understand why trying to get the Samira out because of another all out, and it's also kind of understandable. Like, I don't want to be facing another all out and just say, hey, I'm losing, because they could play another unit. So I understand that. And Voidnetta now, it comes to an interesting, discovery here, and kind of waits it out. What do you think might be the pick here, I mentioned?
So with this here, I think we could either take the Mystic or the Clockling. And we end up with the Clockling. Mystic, because they did just tell, like, TSP did just tell us they don't have another All Out in hand, because Flare All Out would have kept Samira alive. So we could immediately kill another Samira. That said, that's not advancing our game plan. We don't find Echo, and this Clockling can find us a leveled Echo and play him for 3.
Wait. I think the Clockling's nice because, like, yeah, it blocks the fizz, and like you were saying, it does find the echo on your turn. But Team Space Poggers found double Taskmaster, and even though his hand was looking kind of bad, you have some justice now, kind of reeling it back in with, when comes justice comes pressure, and that's exactly it. Like, this 5-2, if it gets Quicksand, that's kind of nice for Team Space Poggers, and you're getting some nice trades here, especially, with this fizz, and opting to keep the flare back in hand.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like, we are really pushing damage here. A Scrying or a Quicksands is going to have to come out just to prevent lethal. And it has to be this Quicksand because the flare is face up.
Yeah. Literally just, skin in their teeth, finding that Taskmaster, pushing lethal damage out of nowhere makes this deck, be somewhat scary. You think it does nothing, you've kind of dwindled down, you've made Samira not be a problem, and then, they just push 9 damage, and then they have another 3 in the hand, and the Starless Shot just relays after relays, and Voidnetta now, even though Team Space Poggers hasn't won right now, and saying that they draw another type of thing here to kind of even it up, and Voidnetta might need to be forced to deny, but even then, you don't have a board. Like, this is probably just over here.
Yeah, this is looking pretty doomed for TSP, for Void here. Like, we have maybe enough to survive next turn with the Scrying and the Mystic Shot, but it's not looking promising. Any other point of burn off the top is game over.
It's kind of sad as well, though, because, like, the Scrying Sand doesn't actually, like, do anything. Because you still push the damage, you still have that 5-3, and Voidnetta, this is probably going to be the saddest right I've ever seen, and here it comes out, but you kind of have to, and even then, like, our top decks here aren't looking pretty. They just openly Scrying, but they do get a 1-3.
This is enough to, like, at least keep them alive, depending on top decks.
Yeah.
Unless this is an all-out. Well, that'll do it. That's the third point of burn.
Talking about top decks, that will do it indeed. Team Space Poggers making that turn 3 look kind of rough, but they bring it back, and we are going to round 2 with a swift victory from them. What a game that was, just kind of, fast and speedy and high octane from TSP.
Yeah, absolutely. That was really quick. That's what the Samira deck does. They didn't even need to draw the Powder Pandemonium. They just taskmastered up, built a huge board of 1-drops, and just blew Echo out.
And now we are into game 2, and Void Netta, maybe, just maybe, hopefully, they might have mulliganed a bit better, and I'm still a bit skeptical of like that feral presence keep. Like, I really don't like keeping that if you don't have like an echo or maybe, just board in general. And I feel like with these collab sets, you could maybe talk about it, but I don't see how you had a mulligan and go, yeah, we're keeping that. Like,
Yeah.
would you either keep that?
I would keep it if it's my only predict, which it was. I really want to get that predict engine going. Try and find better cards, right? Like you said, it is, it's clearly the worst predict in the game. It is just full negative card advantage. It's free card, but it does basically nothing other than tell you what you're drawing next. Which that's the point of the deck. So I could see keeping it. That's it, like, especially with the hand we were given. Taking that hedge play to not fully falter on a full maul.
Yeah, and like it is literally, negative card advantage. Like if I was, a fan of an avid, Echo player back in the day, made by Maltese, he would say don't run negative cards and run stuff like careful because it's just like a better card. And with these new variations, I do like the idea of Feral Presence just because it is a heavier aggro version. But saying that as well, Void Netta isn't really on this aggro version. It's on this weird, like, I don't know, hipster. Would you? It's like a weird hipster build. Like, hey, I'm gonna play these 2 echoes and be kind of cool.
Yeah,
It's kind of funky, and we do
Yeah.
see one of those additions here. Well, 2 of them actually.
Yep, we see both of the novel cards here. I am expecting we picked the Clockling though instead of the 2 other cards. I'm looking at that predict, and all I can think is I would much prefer those Castaways or Heedless Resurrections to be a Jinx.
Yeah.
I would, this hand and this matchup, a Jinx would be pretty nice.
You know what I'm looking at? I'm looking at this Feral Presence just doing nothing. Like,
Yeah.
it's literally just sitting there. We haven't found Echo, and sure, Voices is there, but you don't really have, well, the Echo, and it's just like, it's not a good time. Like, sure, we can maybe find it off this other predict, but if we don't, then you get into those rough stages that Echo kind of finds itself that you need to either find I'm going to say it again, Echo in those earlier turns to forward its legs, because if you don't find it early enough around then, you don't have any potential to kind of put on pressure. And if you don't have time to put on pressure, you can't really find this chrono breaks in time. And if that's the case, usually decks, like especially like this Tristana deck, can kind of get past the Echo just very, easily.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, we're both of these games, we're seeing very bad predict luck here. We've just never seen an Echo other than the one we kicked in the first mulligan. I would have really liked to see this. I would kind of like to see the Scrying Sands come out. I know it's a little aggressive, but we are going to lose this 2-1 now. It's our only elusive. Right now, it's our only way of getting anything done. I would have liked to keep it around.
Well, it is still around. We still have that
Yeah.
2-1.
Yeah.
But there is Pytos, so it is gone. Like,
Yeah.
very ephemerally.
Yes. Maybe it's just me having caster vision or me expecting the Bandle deck to have ping cards. I would have liked to maybe we could have gotten our second predict that turn. Oh boy, seeing Scout here, I'm interested to see what they take. We can either protect our Castaway or try and get this Scout onto Tristana.
There's I really like the idea of it. Like it might kind of play into double quicksand, but what you could do is you could actually uh play the pie toss, created card onto your castaway, and then just put Scout on Tristana.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which isn't bad, but these quicksands do hold this kind of scariness of being a potential to stop things. And like, boy, Netta, whenever I see them predict and not see Echo, I'm kind of sad for them. And at the same time, like, this is kind of running away with Team Space Focus now. Sure, you might have this quicksand to maybe do something, but you can't even get favorable trades. And not getting favorable trades into hand with nothing. And again, you don't draw Echo. You need to pick up that time drink. You're heading into those turns like we were saying, where it just doesn't make anything feel nice here. And this is probably the healthiest and nicest board I've seen from a Tristana Nard, deck that you don't really see often, and it's kind of gonna be a problem.
Yeah, it is, like I said, we're not getting the best predictable from Void's side, but boy, the way Team Space Poggers has had these great pulls. Tristana's leveled on 6 with 2 impact already. We got the scout weapon. The Gnar is flipping with impact and forcing this Echo board down. They're in a great spot.
And like, this quicksand just still doesn't feel good. Like, sure, we can kill the Gnar off, and like, I guess maybe self damage, but the main reason here, and the main reason why, okay, this is interesting. So we're just killing this off and be healthy as possible. I understand that it's probably against the pie toss, but the main reason what I'm thinking right now is like, we're clearing the board of Voidnetta, and the main reason to kind of exploit Echo is if you kill their whole board early, so it doesn't really work well with chrono breaks, or two, you kind of just like piece by piece after they're in that chrono break credential. But they're doing everything to kind of somewhat dwindle down the board, and even though you have some here, it's still just looking super rough from Voidnetta.
Yeah, absolutely. And that said, I didn't hate that Chrono Break going full on the Gnar there. The thing that I thought was interesting for that is we prevented them from generating that Pokey Stick, which Pokey Stick with the prize fight is really good. Oh, and this is just brutal. Last
Right,
turn we
and
said the saddest Rite of Negation we've ever seen. This might be even sadder.
this is literally the definitions of like Voidnetta is literally the definition of sad Rite of Negations. It's just kind of like
they're in just they're not having the best luck with these predicts. They're just not finding the tools they need. And here, even if they find the Echo, that's their whole turn.
oh, and they do
They
find
do
it here.
find him.
Finally, in these, really crucial turns, they do find it. These prize fights being a way to kind of kill off the Echo are gone, but it's still rough. Like, sure, we might get some card advantages and something here, but you kind of just block this and like make some units. You get a scout, and you really need to now find another quicksand with some more units as a top deck, because like this is straight up lethal through impact. So if you don't find this quicksand, it will be game.
Yeah, it's feeling like this Echo is just too little too late. Like once they put this scout weapon on Tristana, I think it's just over. Like unless we skipped into quicksand, I just don't think we can get there.
Even then, I'm pretty sure it might be game.
Yeah.
Let's see. Like, we have 4 units. We have to block all of them besides 2, and they impact for 3 because we can actually stop that. So if they deal through 4 plus the impact of 3. That is 1 off. But then
Yeah.
they have the scout unit, so they have the quicksand already, and then you just have like you can play that Terra. So it should always be lethal, and if you do this, I'm pretty sure this is another way to just secure lethal. Like I think Team Space Pokers are just realizing that anything like this quicksand, if being top decked, might be a problem. They're ready for it, and I hope if we did the maths correctly, this should probably get there, especially in the pie toss. The Let's just do it again. This should be lethal. You have at least
Yeah.
4 here, 6, another impact on that 7, and oh, you stopped 1 damage actually. 3.
Oh,
Alright, no, this is
yeah.
exactly lethal. Yeah,
Exact
like we were
lethal.
saying.
Yeah.
Well, Quicksand almost finding a home to maybe squeeze out something there, but like Team Space Pokers was ready for it. They knew exactly what they had to play for, and what a beautiful set from Team Space Pokers. Sure, you could say Void Netta was maybe unlucky, or they might have made a few minor mistakes that cost them the game, even though they didn't look like a high cost. But this is also not the first time that Void Netta has brought suspectable things and very important stuff like this. Uh, EU Farmers back in like EU Aegis was a similar team that ran Void, and they brought like Israel Seraphine Noxus when there was a time that you shouldn't, and
Right.
this feels like it's almost a reoccurrence. Like it feels like they kind of want to be a bit spicy and do things that just don't make sense, and it's kind of catching up with them. And yeah, Team Space Poggers, because of that, wins the set, and they must be feeling super happy getting up 1-0 so far for the school stage.
Yeah, and let's definitely not to discount Team Space Poggers. I think they played that great, and like you said, that last turn, not going for the scout unit, trying to play around that top deck quicksand, which we did see happen. I think Team Space Poggers made sure to play for their win condition, made sure to play around opponent outs. I really like the way that Team Space Poggers played that, and I'm really interested to see, like you said, Void Netta with this, trying to spice it up maybe a little too much. They do have the 0-1 bracket, and then if they can get through the 1-1 bracket, if they run the next 2 back, they can make it through.
Exactly, and that's kind of the thing because the Swiss stage is a free rounder. So even though you kind of lose the first one, you still have a life. It's not like a traditional Swiss where there's multiple, but it's almost like a weird double elam in a weird sense. But
Yeah.
you do have a lifeline, and if you're a fan of Void Netta, they do have a chance. But I'm pretty sure
All
we are
right.
getting into ABG versus ABG, a mirror of some sorts. I know it's kind of a team killing at least, and they are everywhere, and that's why we see, well, a mirror. And a bit of a one. We've got Tristana coming down and versing Nas Seraphine.
Yeah, this is interesting. So we're seeing Nar Seraphine Bandle Bar here, from ABG Zon into this Tristana Bandle Bilgewater Pile, the typical King's Court deck, from the ABG Targon side.
And Na being picked up as a second card is actually really interesting. It allows you to kind of have Wallop as a weird push for extra damage. I don't think it's somewhat necessary. I think you might want to be like going a bit wider, but hey, always be gaming Targon disagrees and saying that I don't actually hate it. Like we still have these impacts with the Yordle, and it's making Zorn have to do something. Like Zorn doesn't have much. You have, this band with Tailstones, it's not really doing anything. Maybe you need an Electro Harpoon here, and it's maybe Tasty Favor's best card in this hand because there's a lot of like I don't know. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of substance going on beside to deal with what this Tristana is, which is a big card to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. And something of note, this is not Seraphine Nar. This is Seraphine Nar Caitlyn Kennan. So they do not have a second copy of Nar or a third copy of Nar to rely on for a wallop if they try and rip this formula. They'd have to rely on finding their one of main deck wallop, which looks like it might be the line, which they have not. They do not find it. In the bottom corner here, you can see on the screen, by the way, it looks like Duck Peak has taken down Crowstorm 2-0. So we'll keep an eye on other goings on in the Swiss and update you on those as we have them. But I quite like this line from Targon as well, equipping the Gnar, putting Fearsome on it. We're really building up this board.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know we're building up this board, but this is literally just lethal here. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't really matter what you're building up. You're building up this Tristana, and she is kind of insanely, strong. And no matter what Zorn throws at it, they can't deal this board. And Targon takes it through. They were one game up already. Tristana being a threat with this overwhelm, taking the game, and they do take it out. Not only that, but even though we got to see the mirror, we saw a little touch on the corner that we highlighted before, and surprising one. Tron but won against RPG, and maybe an upset, as we would say, because I feel like RPG is almost, the looking favorites that never lose.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really, really surprising. And that is from the seeding Swiss, not the play-in Swiss. All of those teams, I believe, do make it all the way through. They just get lower seeding. So it's interesting, like Red Pup did lose that set. Tron, I think a very underrated team, great players all around, taking down Red Pup in what many would consider an upset.
Yeah, like there should be, we should probably differentiate it a bit. There is that we didn't mention, there is two types of seeding going on. So there is the play in the seeding, which is going for that top 16 spot, and then there's the seeding, and the seeding Swiss is just to literally find what top you're getting at and what you're kind of like, who you might be potentially versing later on, like who is the lowest one on the bracket. And it's like I understand why like RPG could lose, and the main reason might be is because like how much work do you really put in, right? And like it's an understandable thing, but one thing I also want to kind of highlight is Targon ABG, the one that we're focusing for play-ins, is up, and they must be feeling pretty happy because they did come third last season, and for what it looked like almost being eliminated, they are showing why they should still be in here, and they are doing some things and doing some great things at that.
Yeah, I mean, those are great players all around. They had a great year in the last season. The other interesting thing to note about them is they are all APAC players. They're playing this in lieu of their Runeterra Open that is right now. So I would assume they're going to go from finishing this Swiss into running their, between 3 and 12 more rounds of Runeterra Best of 3 at some point.
Yeah, and we just kind of switched into Church of Title losing TKG here, and that's a whole lot of prize fights. Hello, like this is already what 5 times 3. That's already 15 damage, but
yeah, this
sure
is looking.
Yeah,
this is just lethal on its own here from Church of Targon. Not surprising. I don't know that I would want to let Infina Patrons run his deck that he made into me. But I think I don't think we saw the ban phase here, obviously. But we're clearly down, and I don't think there's a way to get out of it.
No, there is literally no way. These 5 prize fights. I really hope they can just sling these out. Like, surely we can do a bit of like, showmanship here, but they take it safe. They don't want to ensure the BM. They have exact lethal and they will take it. Looks like they already won as well, so they kind of bring it to be what Church of Targon maybe getting back into the season once again, which another team that was kind of scraping it through looked to be heavy favorites, but they haven't really picked up the feet, and maybe today is the day they finally might be able to breathe some fire, be able to fly into the next stage. And hey, if they win, then they win. And
Yeah,
all they need
absolutely.
to do is they'll win another one.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, like we were saying at the top of the show, the 3-week format is really rough. They had a really rough week 2, which put them quite low. And for my team, all we had to do was do better than them in week 3, and we would have moved on to this play-in stage. Church of Targon went 3-0 week 3, perfect clean sweep, and made it to play-ins, and have not beat my teammates TKG 0 in a 2-0 clean sweep.
Yeah, and so we sort of a lot of games there, kind of going in fast succession, and we will give you a better update and maybe a visual a bit later on. But first, we will be taking a break. So if you had fun watching those sets, we will be back for the next round. So we'll see you all then in a few minutes. Welcome everyone. We are back here with the week 4. We are also into round 2 of the Swiss stage, and if you miss it, this is a bit different to the previous weeks of usually what happens, and it's just basically back-to-back collabs trying to battle it out and see who is gonna get into this top 16 for the playoffs. And we had some really interesting matches. And Spider-Man, so do you just kind of want to run through what happened for everyone who kind of missed out on uh, the potential results of round 1?
Yeah, I mean, we flipped to a lot of matches. We started with the TSP versus Void. We saw a clean 2-0 there from TSP taking down Void. We flipped to the ABG team kill. Really exciting there as well. We saw Targon also take a clean 2-0 against ABG Zon. Flipping again to Church of Targon, who also took a clean 2-0 over TKG 0. We saw a lot of really exciting matches during that round. We're getting ready for round 2.
Yeah, and just before we kind of get into it, I do actually want to give everyone a reminder that this wouldn't really be possible without community gaming. If you don't really know what community gaming is, it's an all-in-one platform that really helps supercharge events from all levels, really. It goes from community grassroots to tier 1 professional sports. If you want to experience yourself, just start playing and earn at communitygaming.io today. And yeah, it's a pretty good place to really find a place for tournaments. They help out other tournament scenes. They've been helping out Runeterra for a while, and we're pretty grateful. And I'm glad to see them help Aegis be what it is, because if it's without, if it wasn't without community gaming, there would be no Aegis, and there's no Aegis, there's no tournaments. So I'm really happy to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Played many lore tournaments on community gaming. Great platform.
And we're kind of waiting on what might be actually the matches, and I'm pretty sure we would be getting it, but we don't actually have it now, which is a bit of not a worry, but it means that we have to find some time to do a few things here. And but it's understandable. Like, the thing with these Swiss stages is it's a bit tough for production to kind of keep up the pace because it is going non-stop. But
Yep.
with that, we can kind of talk about who we're rooting for. I know I'm a big fan of TSP, which we saw, but who are the other ones you're kind of looking for?
Yeah, absolutely. I like you said, I'm a real big fan of TSP as well. So I'd love to see them get through. Love to see them have some success here. Um, we also saw ABG Targon. I have some friends on that team. Great players. Would love to see them do well. And then my teammates, TKG Zero, Igloofoos TKG team. Um, they went down in week 0, not week 0, round 1, and would love to see them run it back. And then the other team of interest here is Crowstorm, a first time Aegis team making it to the play-ins here. Again, also lost their round 1. Would love to see if they can rally.
Right, and I'm pretty excited to also kind of see Tygon's Valley.
Oh yeah,
They they kind of do a bit of talking, maybe a bit too much talking, and sometimes it bites them in the butt. And it almost did. Like, last week, there was a potential for them to be entirely knocked out, and for them being first in their group to almost bottom of it, it
yeah,
was a bit of a worry. But you have these players that even look like memers a lot of the time, they can do really well. And weirdly enough, but when you have Stolen Conch be the captain and kind of enforces some habits of decent preparation with that wackiness, it can go a long way. So I do actually want to see them kind of succeed, especially since Stolen Cons is probably like one of the most, I wouldn't say hidden gems, but he like it's almost like he's like just like hiding in a big trench coat a lot of the times, and he's just like he pops out and he's like, I'm actually like LeBron James, you know, like
Yeah.
he's actually a pretty good player, and if we do get to see their team, you'll see some great players.
Yeah, absolutely. I like you said about Stolen Conch, he brings some really off meta decks to say the least. But I think that what comes with that is a willingness to try a lot of different things. Really do your prep. And it really surprises opponents. He's blown me out with things like Caitlin Leona, um, just really nonsense brews that like you can tell he put some time into to test. So I'd really be interested to see how Targon's Valley goes.
Yeah, and you also have like even Evelyn, like Evelyn, what was Conch playing? Evelyn Nora, like Evelyn Nora was played, and he got that to like top 20. Like you can't be a standard person and do stuff like that. Like
Absolutely.
Conch, this is why we kind of are hyping up Conch at the moment. Tiger's Valley is like, people like this can go a long way in tournaments that are very, very like kind of secluded, and when people think there is a certain meta, they kind of follow that. And if you have something wild like someone Conch goes for or this team goes for, and they find that hidden gem, the holy grail format, it changes up everything. And when you hit playoffs, it can just throw the whole game out to left field. And that's what I really want to see. And we, talking about what we want to see, the round is still not seeded, so we'll probably be going to a break.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll probably be going to a break. I know you guys were all waiting for that whole 10 minutes, and we aren't really into this next round. So hopefully it'll be another short break, and we'll be back soon as possible.
Yep.
Welcome everybody. We are back after that extended break. unexpected extended break. Newsflash: Targon's Valley, even though we're talking them up, they take a while to play, and they were taking a while to play against a new group that we'll be seeing for round 2, which is Team Absolute. They are one of the Latin teams. They have a previous seasonal winner, with that being Alder Senior. Then you have a few other people like Maitri, which kind of bring the team to be kind of scary. If you don't know Maitri, bit of an off-meta gamer who likes to bring a lot of stuff, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see some interesting stuff here today. And we've got TKG on the other side of that, and I know someone who probably knows these players better than me, Spider Mansion, a fellow TKGer. Should we be worried about any of these players, and who is maybe the star stutter of the player from this team?
Yeah, this TKG team I think they're a great team. Sauron, Wild West, Igloo Foo, and Gadra. Gadra is going to be their pilot. But I know Igloo Foo the best. We scrim and tech and practice a lot in voice chat. I think they're a great team, great guys. Excited to see how they do.
Yep. And like you said, God Drawer, probably one of the most, I wouldn't say most competitive, because I feel like they're all competitive players, but the most accomplished. I feel like has done really well, and I felt like led the last TKG with Weka. Like they did really well last season, so I understand why they're in play-ins. And now we are into the ban phase, and we get to see the list somewhat similar, but we see another solo Echo here. What's going on?
Yeah, pulling up the list, we're not really getting into the details of these lists. It appears to be the exact same deck as we saw Void run. So I'm interested to see where this is coming from. If this popped up in some LATAM tournaments that we just, you and I just weren't tapped into.
Yeah, I hope not, because like I really hope not. But it's a funky list. Like it looks weird. I actually saw this previously, and I saw a few people kind of talk about it. I did ask other Echo enthusiasts, and like they just said this list looks really weird. It doesn't really do what it should be doing into the matchups you want it to be doing, like for Samira. And I it, I guess maybe it's to be better into control, but I feel like the only real control you might have at the moment is like Karma set, and that's an Ionia deck. It doesn't actually really kill. Uh, it doesn't really kill Echo unless you have like your Sunburst. So it's pretty funky. Like it's a really weird spot, and if it could maybe get some justice on like doing what it wants to do, it could be really effective. But I don't really see that ever happening convincingly.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm interested to see if it's left up here, and maybe AT gets some better predict luck, and maybe we can see the deck do its thing. Meanwhile, TKG is running a pretty stock lineup. They're on the Nar team at Tristana with the Bilgewater. They're on the Fizz Samira with the monkeys. And they're on Echo Jinx, a much more traditional Echo Jinx list. So I'm interested to see how these bands play out.
I'm so glad you see their deck list, because I have no idea with this visual kind of cutting out one side. So maybe you could run that out. But we should probably be seeing the band soon. Like, and there's a few things I would say, like seeing how Echo played out before. I bet you that wouldn't be banned. Like that just felt horrible. I don't want that to be kind of Void's bane of existence, but it just looked bad. And we
Yeah.
will get the bans soon, and we'll also get that visual sorted out. Just that's why we popped into this visual here of us. And yeah, I'm really excited. We have TKG running it out with these 3 teams, and even though one couldn't get through, if 2 gets through, that's somewhat, considerable, especially when I wouldn't say the server or the team doesn't look at serious as times, but if they get through with 2 of them, you can say definitely they are here to be serious and try and win it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, varying levels of success and varying levels of seriousness depending on the day and depending on the season and depending on the team. But, putting those 2 teams through and all 8 of those players, just excellent players. We're not looking at the other TKG team, but it has, seasonal runner up Chem on it. Um, several top cut players as well. It's really, really exciting players between the TKG teams.
Right, and is this the upper bracket or the lower bracket for the source stage?
So the one we're watching right now, or we will be watching, is in the lower bracket. Whereas the other TKG team is also in the lower bracket.
Okay, that's maybe somewhat of a worry for TKG,
Yeah,
but it is
we'll
a
see.
do or die now,
Yes.
and both people must be scared because, like, I don't know. I feel from a competitor who's played before in Aegis, I've never really hit being out of playoffs, but I can feel if you put so much prep and time into that 3 weeks and then you literally just call it quits, not call it quits, but you lose by the skin of your teeth, it doesn't feel good. So hopefully that kind of uprises this competition and, well, these games coming up to be somewhat even more competitive because it really makes that pressure, be an understanding of, hey, we need a win, and hopefully that might show some more really exciting games.
Yeah, absolutely. This it's do or die here in the lower bracket. So I'm really interested to see what happens.
And we should be getting into the games soon. uh it's been a bit of a slow one. Sorry about that, everyone, but that's how it goes sometimes with Swiss seedings and all of this, especially when like Targon's Valley decides to have a 30-round game or something against, like, when you're not playing a control deck. It just happens, and it especially happens when you have a lot of collab sets. Like, that's what I love the beauty of these collab sets, because you have so much time to think that it gets even more intense, and you have to really figure out the best lines, where there's another kind of strategy to it where you have to be like, oh, maybe I need to play fast, maybe I need to put the pressure onto them, maybe I need to make them think more. And there's just extra mind games, and I love that from competitions. And this is why, once again, I just love seeing this collab back seating, format be a thing and being spotlighted in this stage.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I don't think we talked about it at the top of show, but if you're not super familiar with the Aegis format, this is a collaborative set. All the players are in a call together, talking through their plays. It takes a lot of different types of skills. It's testing a lot of different things, testing your communication with your teammates as well as your play. Um, and a lot of games go to time because of that, especially when teams are don't have their necessarily collab plan worked out entirely.
Yeah, and even though we didn't really talk about decks, but we are back into the ban phase now finally, and even though it was flipped before, we have TKG now on the bottom, and like you were saying, Echo Jinx, and it's, once again, it's a very similar lineup. This is kind of what a lot of people are bringing. They're like, yep, I'm going to bring Samir Fizz. That thing is kind of broken. Then I'm going to bring either like Tristana or Echo to kind of bully the Fizz Samira if I'm kind of targeting it. And Tristana just a good deck, and we see that with Colombia at the same time, they're doing a similar thing, but they've opted out for Karma's set here. And I guess Karma's set might be kind of good into that Demacia stuff and like doing a bit of other things, but we see the ban and wow, they do ban the Echo this time. Maybe they didn't really have a proper look at this list because they don't look like a worry for the Fizz Samira, but hey, maybe they just respect it nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really interested. They left up that Karma set, which traditionally is a bad matchup for Samira Fizz, but it is not the Piltover version, it's the Targon version. So I'm interested to see if without all those pings they can get through.
Yeah, and there's some tools like the way that that deck is now opted is it's more aggressive to the point where sure you might not have Corsix, but these younglings might be more effective. This 1/4 means that you're better off into Butcher. You have a lot of other things, and it gives you some leeway for it to still be a decent matchup. And I feel like it's even kind of decent into Echo now because of all these stuns and these younglings are really nice to stall out the game. And I'm pretty sure they full kept, not full kept, but kept those two younglings, making a herd of them, a school maybe, trying to capitalize on just stabilizing the early game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great keep. Just making sure this Echo deck can never really get through those 1/4s until the Voice of the Risen comes down. Really hard to get through those. We just don't have units big enough.
And finally seeing this like Echo deck having a decent draw was like a good sight to see. I'm like, I'm so happy they finally have a decent curve with like some interaction and like probably finding your Echo, because even though there are ways for kind of Colombians to kind of capitalize and exploit, or like maybe recalling the Echo and stuff like that, there is still a lot of threat density. And when you have things like voices, when you have things like Jinx, you can kind of put too much pressure, and those like wills and stuff don't really uh, can really affect the game as much as they would.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see that TKG is picking up their Echo off of this predict, um, which is great to see. We're no longer stuck in bad predict world. Um, and like you said, the AT deck, the Karma set deck, does have a lot of these stall tools. But unlike Piltover, we don't have a lot of great single target removal. Our options here in the deck, they run 3 Falling Star and 3 Sunburst, all of which will clean up an Echo quite nicely. But they're either heavy or conditional.
I wonder. So TKG here is thinking about the develop, and I actually really like that. Sure, you don't really need to develop for like a lurk or anything because you're not lurk, but the main reason why I like this is because you need to kind of put on pressure, and the only thing this kind of concedes to is a free, but you can still get around that with your scrying sands, and scrying sands doesn't really have much value unless it's onto the set.
Yeah, absolutely. So I quite like this develop here. We're getting these 2/3s down. They're nice and big. That said, we're staring down the face of 2 unicorns here, which are just gonna provide consistent healing. Which
Well,
is yeah.
well, in the past they just don't really want to damage these like units, which is like it makes sense as well because like over time they just heal up anyway. So I do really like that, but Team Colombia now just has to play this place your bets. Sure, you didn't really have much to go, to do anyway, but the problem is like when you kind of just tap out straight away, it allows the TKG to kind of do things that like might feel a lot more comfortable than they should. Maybe that Sunverse is less of a worry now because they tap out means hey, I can maybe do crazy at predicts. Don't need to worry, and because of that, they do just slam the Echo, level it up, and I really wish I could say it's going to do a lot, but the stun is probably going to be coming out, and it might do something eventually.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's going to be really hard for this Echo to get this hit and get this value into this deck. I really like the pickup of the second Echo here. Just try and get something
Ooh,
down. I also
wow!
quite
And they
like,
just,
yeah,
I
I don't know. Yeah, this is interesting. Not letting them develop. This is a set turn here, so saying you don't want to let them get down set into this voice is interesting. Um,
so eh, the other worry I'm thinking about is like, okay, if they do have that palm, they palm out, then sure, I'm not swinging with my Echo, but I can actually just like I can still swing with my voices, and they can't trade into anything else. I might lose one of my units, but that's still fine. I
right.
I feel like it could be really a missed opportunity, especially like sure maybe they sunburst, but you're not really worried about that, especially since Team Colombia had passed. You kind of have some idea of like, hey, they might not have that slow speed removal that I care about, and might allow me to do some really hectic things. But now this might actually give Team Colombia some way of like dealing with things because this set does come down and TKG might need to opt for either letting this go through, finding maybe that chrono break from the Echo and play the other one, or just simply time trick into a quicksand. Quite a few things, but it's just not as great as it could be.
Yeah, and I see we're ripping this pass, and
Wow,
Columbia rips it right back. Fascinating. I really like that,
absolutely.
just burning all of TKG's mana, not letting them do anything last turn.
Yeah, and that is the worry of like challenger units that come down that early. Like Vi was such a menace back in the day of like rising tides just because of that reason. Sure, it had a lot of health and like it was kind of broken, but it just being able to forcibly trade into things makes you kind of pass there. And TKG optically passed out, and you run into this problem now where it gives Colombia that space of knowing what to do. They recall the voices, and this board gets hectically less threatening and even if we palm out, we're just absolutely vibing here for a millennia.
Yeah, it is just looking really, really hard to get through and hit face, and even if we do, the ponies are going to heal it right back up.
Well, it's weird because like you don't really want to be using the second echo for like a draw to find that conversions because if you lose this echo from that set, you can't really do much. Like you would have to try and maybe go for a double chrono break line and assume that maybe it gets denied and just go through with the voices. But there's so many potential things that if their board is already full and you can't really push it initially, it gets really awkward to kind of navigate that. And you run down to these, percentages that get really small to the point where you really can't lose this echo and you need as much as possible. And maybe this is the one time you might want to be on the heatless list because even with this Jinx line, you've got like nothing but 4 mana units in hand.
Yeah, we're on a really clunky hand here. Like you said, we can't even like play this Echo spell for cycle. Oh my goodness. This
Yeah,
blinded mystic is horrible for us.
it's horrendous. Like actually, like Blind and Mystic, boom, that voice is never gonna get off the board. So you just played a 4 mana, basically a free fall, which is like Karma doesn't care about a free fall. You've
Yeah.
got set, you've got all this stuff, it just cares about the effect and neutralizing that, especially with no chrono break ever being now a threat, is like kind of sad. Like sure, you might have another one, but this might be allowing Colombia to just give that speak of a tiny bit of timeout for Karma to be potentially drawn. And when you hit turn 10, we know that it gets a bit freaky.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we see the second place your bets in hand. I'd be interested to see if that comes out before we find this karma. Because otherwise, we kind of need that to combo off and go infinite. But we also don't have karma. We're in a good spot. We they're pretty stable. It's hard for TKG to get through, especially now that this voice is gone. I don't know what they do from here.
So another voices is like okay. They can't silence that one at least. And then they do have Jinx, but we can't level up this Jinx is a bit of a worry, so it's not it's like a pseudo like you wish it was like pressure or threat, but the Jinx isn't really doing much here.
Yeah.
So maybe like you hope for like just trying to grab a maybe Chrono Break, but you have to really play around the night because if you go for that play where you're in this state of like both players at 20, it might just be too all in that you kind of get absolutely absolutely just blown out. So you probably can't play for that, especially with Echo being dead. Not dead, sorry, stunned. It just makes things kind of weird. But they are all attacking here. They understand that they have to at least get the board dwindled down, or they have no chance of ever pressuring through. Which I like this. I really do because like, yeah, we kind of said that if Colombia is just like killing and waiting it out, it's really favorable for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is really smart from Colombia, just trading down the board. You know, you have the deny in hand. This Chrono Break is not working if we have it. We've denied every free time trick. So, just trade down. You don't care about your units. You just care about your two engines. I like this. I think this is like TKG playing their outs and AT just playing their game.
So you're pretty comfortable like taking damage here. I feel like having these triple guidings kind of incentivizes you to, I would say, take this damage. Like we were talking about earlier, hey, do we play this place your bets? But having all of these guidings in hand, I feel like we're not opted to, which is kind of funny as well because like, well, they disagree.
I don't know.
They're going for a showstopper line, which makes a lot of sense. This also echoes why you kind of went for those trades there, and wow, we just get more younglings, but and then probably the coin comes out probably enough for showstopper. I'm pretty sure we probably played 12. Like obviously we haven't counting, but you wouldn't be making these plays anyway, and. We were talking about herd of younglings earlier, and like this is literally it. This is the role play of younglings, Spider-Man. If we were trying to live on a farm forever and just like farm off younglings, like boom, we've got it. We've literally got the hand that wants that. But the showstopper comes out and obliterates the echo means if you have that Chrono Break, it would never be a problem. And goodbye to that actual affected 5-1 as the voice of Risen.
Yeah, and we just let that go through, which is really really tough. We the deny it wasn't going to work. We know that from our side. But we lost our actually viable voice of the Risen in that showstopper as well. So we're in kind of a rough spot from TKG's side.
So there are some hopes. Like it's horrible hopes. Don't get me wrong, but you have the deny and you have Chrono Break. Now we do see hands, and we understand that they do have will and deny here. But if maybe some hope of TKG to get back into this game, and the hands weren't relevant, this would be it. But Karma is seen play, and this is kind of wild. They just need to wait it out, and we'll see if they do. Taking up some more removal, which is an obliteration, and just gotta be patient. Maybe Karma will be played after this, especially with Set just piecing off some threat here.
Yeah. And there comes the Karma.
My spirit is an unquenchable fire.
So this, it's not much. Like even if you want a chrono break here, it's just like it's doing nothing.
Yeah.
And you can probably like you have enough to kind of get another showstopper this turn as well. But they take the pass, understandable. Another way of like exploiting Echo is if you just dwindle down their threats, making them never really get chrono break value. And if you trade off that one Jinx, you're fine with it. And this comet does come out, but thankfully how Right works is, you can stop two of these. Opted not to because you found the other Echo, and even though we're going on and out, this just doesn't really do anything because you have a deny, you have these tag outs. Sure, you might have Right, but like if you can't chrono break now, and if they get another showstopper, like it's just sad. And you can do
Yeah.
that especially.
Yeah, this is looking rough. They don't. Karma doesn't have the tools to just draw their whole
Oh
deck and
my
play
goodness.
every
Okay,
card.
double falling
Right,
star as well.
falling
Hello.
star, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to say it's over, but like Echo, when it gets to a stage like this, there are certain lines where you can win, and that is like double chrono break. But newsflash, stopper really stops the chances of anything to happen, because if you have to write a negation here, that's fine, but it just gets jumped next turn, and you have like these fully stars, you have these tagouts, you have these stuns. It's like it's just too much for them that sadly you can't even attack here because the barrier's here. So maybe you just want to draw.
I don't know. Maybe we're just looking for another Jinx? Because this is our third and final Echo. We cannot get him back.
Maybe it's just given up. Like maybe somehow they hear through. I don't know. Somehow they understand. Like we're never winning. We're just like gonna find some Hail Mary, and
Okay, yeah.
that is just a throw out of the Echo for a surrender. And yeah, when you get to a board state like that, there's no chance of getting back. So not thankfully, but well, TKG sadly loses their 2AT in the first round. Then went to round 10. Basically, Karma had those younglings really out early on, and even though they didn't really do much, it made basically made like Echo not really be able to attack, and we saw the consequences of that in the later rounds, that they just couldn't get through, and when they had to get through, their chrono breaks were just absolutely empty of like potentially doing anything. But
Yeah.
now we are into this next game.
Yeah, and we see, again, this Echo deck. Oh, this is a rough mulligan. We kept an Echo in the quicksand, and we're not seeing any predicts in the hand of the Echo side. And from AT here, we're getting off to a decent start. We've got the stylish shot. We've got early plunders, and we have our draw engine, our Inferna.
But another nice start that is also early is TKG. They pick up the drop order, kind of overboarding into the way of getting that extra 1 damage, and like sure it might not look like it does much, but with certain hands it might get through to be kind of awkward and piece off certain things. But AT just playing it somewhat like how they have to get this Fury out. I mean, this is not really the hand you want, but another thing is Inferno with hands like this is the perfect reason why it gets played, and we might see it showing why, how impactful it can be.
Yeah. And I quite like skipping our predict last turn in favor of sending that Mystic shot at the Father Fury, denying the stylish shot coming back. I quite like that. I think I would have liked to see the predict develop here. We would have been 3 wide to their potential 1 develop, and if we hit a drop border, there's only 2 left in deck, we would have gotten 4 wide. I think the develop overtaking the 3 damage would have been worthwhile. That said, just taking your damage while you can get it against Samira Fizz, which can't heal, never a bad thing.
And I'm pretty sure we picked up that Cockling, and I really do actually like this clock thing. It stops the Inferno, especially with the Stylus shot. But something I kind of also want to point out is you have two things in hand. You have one, a Dark and Ballista, and another thing that might have looked quite nice if it wasn't in the hand of AT for TKG would be that Vulnerable, and it can actually pull out, make that Stylus even better. And another scary thing here is even if they pick up, Scrying Sands potentially, it doesn't actually stop any type of Stylus shot because of this Darkened Ballista. Like, the Ballista might get so much value here, and they pick it up. Wow, this might be just kind of sad news that this Darkened Ballista will get as much value as it potentially can.
Yeah. Yep, and they are playing exactly around it. They'll pull the clockling to the side, try and kill it with the butcher, which would get the extra ping, and you'll get the Stylus shot back, push 4 damage here. I quite like this line. I would presume we just this is okay.
I think it's a
it's just a mistrack. Yep.
And this isn't still horrible for TKG. Like, sure, you might get the Stylus shot and try and work with it, but the sport is pretty fine. Like, you do lose out on your unit here, and you can kind of still pressure to a point where, if they don't find another unit and kind of chump block the Echo, you could be dealing up to at least something like, 9 damage. And 9 damage means that, like, in a couple of turns, you're, in a very scary position. At the same time, though, when you pick up something like Samira with a lot of plunders and you don't have that Mystic anymore, it means that, hey, you might also have a scary time as well, because anything that can switch the game up it would be the Samira.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have Samira, we have a lot of plunders. But if we full swing here, we're really going to be needing to send some blocks in. And, we see the all-out on the other side, but, like, this is both our best top deck, and not something we're really keen to block with.
So, okay, like, when you're in situations like this, you're in a really heavy pay-to-win situation where you have to kind of look at the game as almost like a big, like, combo play sense where you have to go for that 100% win line, and you have to kind of relay it to a point where the game is more about time, and certain life total doesn't really matter, and you have to just focus on, like, even if you're not winning next turn, you have to focus on going wide enough and being to a point where you can neutralize and be so ahead of value and, stop whatever you potentially can to the point where you're back into the game. And with a hand like Inferno and Samira, that does it, but you have to do things like maybe block this.
Yeah.
Maybe be representable of, hey, I don't want to play into the Mystic because my only good way of winning is this long game plan of just, like, keeping the Samira. And I'll be honest, I really dislike it. I understand that this is probably is this a second Samira in hand? I hope it is. But
It is not.
No, it's not. Okay. I really dislike it because all the things I was saying to put you back into the game involve Samira, and they just went, no. They really just went, hey, I need to stop everything here to be a potential of damage, and then just, like, go, hey, I'm also just, like, not going to do that, and I'm going to in that life source isn't a resource, which it is, newsflash, and now this is scary. Like, you just lose a Samira here again.
Yeah, that is rough. Yeah, I think we probably could have afforded to go down to 7 here. Keep this Samira. I think trying to get a flare to try and draw as many cards and make sure they're playable next turn is not the worst line, but I think we easily could have afforded taking that hit.
Well, I'll be honest, I think it was the worst line. Like, you had a flare already in hand. You have the all out. You need to keep that all out, and you need to keep all these plunders for this Inferno to be the most impactful thing ever. And your deck is mostly 1-drops, where, this is the way you win. Like, that Samira is the way you get into this game, And now, because of that, you have things like all of these jinx and newsflash as well, because you had to spend that extra 1 mana on like that all out that you also blocked, for not going down to 5. You can't even play the powder pandemonium. You're losing out of potential things to do, and it's just making everything so ruthless to the point where you might be dealing, 6 damage or so if this quicksand wasn't a thing, but you also just run out of Samira's now with another
Yeah.
one just
We're
fleeting.
Yep, we are burning our third Samira and our first Powder Pandemonium here. We are in quite a weird spot. And the best we can really do on this attack is push 3 damage, maybe push 6. Oh, this is interesting. We're challenging with our... Okay, we're pushing 9 here to just push as much fearsome as possible. I think this is probably the right swing, but boy, it's getting blown out.
Yeah, I like them at least trying to find some saving grace. Like, that's the beauty of card games, that you can kind of make work with any situation, even though maybe the prior ones weren't great, and you kind of think out of the box. And this fearsome line is definitely that. Like, you threaten killing the echo, and you also try and push as much damage. Where top decking that counter pandemonium could win you a game essentially in a vacuum, but we don't live in a vacuum. Card games aren't really a one-sided solitaire thing. There is interaction, and they had it. Not only that, but they also have the chrono break and maybe even voice of resonance to just push through damage. Either one here is fine, but I'm opting to the voice of resonance. What do you feel like is a proper play here?
Yeah, I definitely, I think it's hard to pass up a chrono break, but I think we have to here. Pushing this Voice of the Risen, like, sure, we can attack twice in one turn, but we know they don't have any real cards in hand. They're drawing 3 this turn, but it's going to be so heavy. And they're not actually going to be able, it's very unlikely that they're going to be able to kill anything, that we're not actually reviving anything with this chrono break. Whereas if we drop this Voice, we would probably just be pushing lethal right on the swing.
So, yeah, let's think about it. We play chrono now. They play 1 unit. We have 4 damage coming through. Then they would block maybe our echo, a 2/1, and then another Voice. We push 4 plus the other 2 free, so that would be 10 damage. So yeah, you technically would lose from that just off the bat. It means that maybe like if they appear it, it might be somewhat sad, but the chrono break isn't horrible. You still have Jinx to play. You can still have this ride up, and like if you play double units, you can almost get there. I feel like, I mean, hey, if you're just barb chaining, then you can almost always get there, because like now you're just not worried about anything. We find a time trick and we do just get even more chrono breaks. Hey, this is nonetheless, who cares about what we're talking about? Because you can just draw double anyway, and this will be regardless equal from TKG. Palming it back, maybe a few questionable things from AT in that mid game, but they take it to a tied set for literally a potential do or die. This is getting intense with TKG scraping it out for making it game 3.
Yeah, absolutely. I think TKG took some good lines there, played to their outs. There were some plays we disagree with from AT, which sort of set that up. But they TKG tied up the set, and we're going into a Fizz Samira mirror.
Okay, so the thing with like the Fizz Samira originally and the mirror was you would kind of take the deck to be like what it is now, because you wanted more tempo and you wanted to kind of have lines that could be more impactful where it didn't have Samira. But the main reason or the main way to kind of get ahead in this matchup is literally, have Samira and a lot of one drops and probably Powder Pandemonium, and you're, decently chilling. But, TKG, even though they don't really have a great hand without that, even if they don't have that Samira, they have a decent hand. It can kind of put on pressure, and like AT doesn't really want to style a shot to, block this free freeze. So two mana 6/6 is pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a really great start from TKG. Like we're pushing a lot of pressure here, and while we're low on cards, we are forcing a lot out. And yeah, we're gonna have to trade these 3/3s. We're burning our opponent's stylish shot, and we got our stylish shot back along with one of our 3/3s still alive.
And the hesitation sometimes happens as well. Like that could have maybe been neutralized. The other free could have been, stopped by the elegant gate. Elegant. Sorry, I'm losing what the other part of her name is. But
the elegant edge.
the elegant edge. There we go. But yeah, maybe you could play it out. But the thing is, like at the same time, I really like now just capitalizing on the Samir. Sure, we might have lost our stylish shot, but maybe AT finally realizes that Samira is actually decent, maybe the best card in the game, and if you keep her on the board, she's kind of good.
Yeah, absolutely. She's clearly a great card. I really like this. I still quite like this, pushing this. I was going to say we could bluff an all out. We could hold up this Pyro, pass priority, see what we do. Now we're tapped out of mana. This is a really really dangerous spot for AT to be in. We can see from TKG's hand they don't really have anything, but they have a lot of weird off meta tech cards here. They run one Parlay, one Elixir of Wrath, and one Noxian Fervor, and that was a really great pickup here. We can we can style a shot out this Father Fury into this Taskmaster. That'll be 4 Plunder procs already on this Powder Pandemonium, and we are just really off to the races.
It's, even though that might be a line, but it could be crazy. We might, just hear me out here. There is a potential chance of Powder Pandemonium. Sure, it isn't great. Like it might be somewhat not horrible, but somewhat less optimal. But the thing is, you get rid of the Samira, and you actually, you deal a bit of trades here, and like I really just like that pass as well because it gives you that option to kind of assess how the game is going, how much potential they have, and like anything could really happen, especially with that Taskmaster. But hey, they opt for the Fury here, and they might just play this Taskmaster and play it a bit slow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think playing Taskmaster into this Powder Pandemonium this turn is definitely a reasonable option. Just clean up their board, pull everything to the side, push a bunch of burn. But I also definitely don't mind taking this slow. We're going to get our 5th Plunder proc this turn if we play this Barbed Chain here, and just push a ton of damage.
And there is that other worry of like, if they have a Powder Pandemonium themselves, it just gets like really scary because if I lose my board and I don't have that instant refill, I'm going to lose the game. But
yeah,
you are also into a state now where the Samira is flipping, you aren't putting any pressure, and your board is dwindling. And now, if they decide to Powder Pandemonium, they can at least clear that board, and then it gets even scarier. So it's really weird because you're in this weird almost halt of not wanting to play your powder first, but it might be correct because it is your way to get back into the game, and it's almost in the favor of Colombia's choice when they want to play this because they can even play it now or just wait for the opposing one, and they'll be favorable in every sense.
Yeah, absolutely. We are in a good spot here for TKG, but I think both teams are doing, marginally okay. AT has this Samira, but they are out of cards other than this Pandemonium in hand. Whereas, TKG has kind of an awkward board. I'm really interested in the way TKG AT sent this Piro off. I would have assumed they'd go after trying to kill the Father Fury, but I guess they didn't. They didn't want to get blown out by the All Out. Perfectly reasonable. Um, we with Caster Vision know that there wasn't one in hand. Um, yeah,
But Purely and Parlay is being picked up from TKG, and these are kind of the cards you want. Like, let's say Absolute Team Gaming, even though they are up with the Samira now, doesn't really have that refill. And if they go for this Powder Pandemonium, which they go for, you have some okayness. Like, it might not be great, but Samira being able to be not getting any flare value means that later turns for Plunder gets hideously worse, and it means you can stop some things here because you get free powders out. You can at least challenge two, but you can get one stoppage now and a stun. They're only really pushing, free actual damage and then another free with these powders here.
yeah. So I'm interested to see how we send this.
Oh, okay, funky. I don't. This is funky. I understand because of the powder, but you're essentially going to be taking more damage this way because
Yeah,
the powders are literally going to drag anyway, and they're going to push more damage. Where if you do this, you get one trade through. Somewhat, you still can actually plunder now if they go for the value trade on the butcher, maybe. But like, even then, it's still fine because you don't take another free damage, and the game could go down to damage. But another thing this game might go down to is literally some type of refill, and like Colombia really can't even go for these Infernos anymore because you don't actually have any type of plunder trigger that might come in handy or fast enough for the hand of them.
yeah, absolutely. And this elegant edge that we're about to drop, I believe. Oh, this is interesting. We're going to force. We're going to play this parlay, which they just let it through. Fast, like interesting. Not wasting that all out there. And I think this elegant edge will be our fifth plunder, so we will have a full board of monkeys next turn if we want to rip it, which I don't see why we wouldn't.
Right? And we were talking about this. The subsequential, powder pandemonium might actually be the Armageddon of this game. Might really swing it back into the favor for whoever waits it out and tries to stabilize the board prior, gets things through where it might just actually impact it. And it's just as lethal here. We double swing, we have to block the monkeys here. This is 5 damage through 6 plus 10. This is lethal.
That's
We
gonna do it.
can
We can
even if we all out here,
even if
this
we
is
all
still
out. It's not.
lethal.
Yeah.
TKG takes it through. What a game it looked like, being almost back into AT's favor. TKG just scrapes through, makes a powder pandemonium, win the game, and they go through the top 16. Or not? No, sorry, they are not eliminated. Sorry, and they
Yes.
finally have another chance to get, once again to try and battle out to make it to top 16.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a really, really exciting mirror. TKG never saw their Samira, and because they had that powder mandemonium come down second, into, like you said, into an empty board, it was just lethal. There was nothing AT could do.
Right. And even though we saw a few games of, well, AT versus TKG. We probably will have a few other games, but first we might be sorting a few things out before that. So we will be taking a break, and we'll try and be here back as possible as we can. So see you all then.
Was a golden state of hope. Go down the reckoning to bring back hope and peace. Restore our Gloria to live forever. Bring down the dark regime. I know how to unleash eternal power. Lead us to order. I am the light bringer.
Welcome, everybody. We are into the final round of what will be Aegis play-ins. There's been quite a bit of, upsets and wins and losses for the point where some teams are already out of this Aegis play-ins, and it leaves us to the last few remaining. For this third round, this is literally it. This is a chance for them to either qualify through or never ever see foot in Aegis for this season again. And that's a scary thought. Spider Mansion, we've got another TKG coming up, and I know you're fans of them. I know you're, part of that team as well. So maybe give us a rundown of who we've got coming up for this next round.
Yeah, this is the TKG team. This is like main TKG. This is Samsans, this is Kem, this is Wekhar, and this is Frozen Thrall Doug. All like perennial like tournament players, top cutters. Like I said, Kem is a seasonal runner-up. Great players. I'm really excited to watch them. And we have their first deck here, and it's something we've seen, I think, in every round. This Teemo Tristana Bilgewater deck.
Yeah, it's just like everyone is kind of just like preparing for like opens in a sense where they have an idea of what the best lineup is and just went, hey, if we have no restrictions of what we have to bring and we are just hitting a wide field, let's just bring the best decks. Like it makes a lot of sense, and that's what they've done. And a lot of people are opting for the signpost now, especially for that mirror of the Demacian for the Demacian Tristana, but also it helped us Samira Fizz a lot more, especially since like we've kind of seen in the past few games that they keep it open, and that's probably what they're going to do again. And honestly, they probably have Samira Fizz because look, this is it. They have it.
Yeah. Yeah, and this, unlike the other TKG team, this is a much more, I'd say, a much more traditional list. A lot less of these one-ofs here. We don't have the Noxian Fervor. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have it. Also, Samira Fizz just doesn't randomly I don't know, call it just spontaneously change into a Nasus. It is still for Samira, and they have pretty much similar stuff like you were saying, but Elixir of Wrath is like maybe the only change for that one Inferno. And I don't hate that, trying to just get a bit more over the top and make a few things a bit awkward for the opposing opponents thinking about that card.
Yeah, absolutely. This is like splitting the difference between the two builds that we've been seeing all day. We've got Inferno, we've got 3 Barb Chains, and we're back on Swindles here trying to get our card advantage. And then we see TKG's third deck here, and it's an Echo Jinx. This is basically the same lineup the other TKG team took. The builds are slightly different, but it's three good decks.
That is kind of literally the theme for this week. I like we have been literally seeing almost mirrors all day, and finally TKG understands that hey, running Jinx is kind of good. Like we just saw AT do, unfortunately go out of the tournament. I wonder if Void Meta also lost. Maybe Spider Mansion.
They, I believe, did not, and they are playing. They'll be playing for their plans. Big Fish Gaming Bass team. But for now, we'll be, we'll keep you updated on the score if we get it. But we can pivot into Targon's Valley's decks, and we see this Nasus Vagar version. I quite like these 2 Vagars here. If our 8 mana card is going to be the Descent Ada, that we're ramping into, try and get these darknesses a little bit bigger. So I quite like that the Vagar is our second champ. It's not messing up our rekindlers. We're still hitting Nasus, and we can try and get these extra pieces of spot removal.
Yeah, it's like I really like this Vagar Nasus as a concept, that is, because it makes Volsahelia actually a good card, and you do it in an interesting way where at first it wasn't really obvious, but Shepard pulling out Rock Bear and just like absolutely accelerating that to get Nasus on the board makes it really like makes this really cool. And you have a lot of other things that kind of work with it well. You know, you can obviously get another Nasus on with a Kindler, like you're saying, also the Detonator. And it works quite decently. And even though Stream is somewhat a weak region at the moment, you're utilizing it in the best way possible with all of these cards where they can kind of capitalize from the Vaults of Helia. And it's so nice to see, especially with things like this, even though it looks like a weird list because you have Vega, it still works.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really cool list, and I'm hoping to see. I'll be interested to see if it doesn't get banned. Moving into their second deck, though, no surprise here. We are seeing Tristana Bilgewater. Pretty much been the story, the story of the day, a Tristana deck. We see the one puzzling signposts. Of note here, we see the one Eye of Nagakaboros try and get that extra card advantage. Something that we haven't been seeing a little bit. We haven't been seeing much of today. I think it's a good tech.
Right. Okay. Now, moment of truth. Do we have it? Whoa, crazy! It's Fizz Samira. Whoa, who would have thought?
Yep.
Wow. But like this one running the two Fizz, that's kinda interesting. I understand that now they've been going for two Pull Shark for this version. I understand that Vengevine was testing this earlier throughout the week and was doing, all right with it. I actually was having a look at, stats, and I think they went not the best, like 65% over 65 games, which is all right. Not hitting maybe the ones you want, but the Pull Shark's still impactful. Like getting that draw out and just being another unit, making it work. Taskmaster has better spots where you kind of can pressure earlier on and make that swarm potential be even more impactful here. And talking about swarm potential, these Tristana decks being paired up into each other with this whole lineup, I'm wondering what we kind of ban here on the side of TKG.
Yeah, from TKG side, I'm really not sure. I think this Nasus deck is pretty interesting. I think that might be the hardest thing for our stuff to get through. Nasus gets big and it'll get harder for us to go under it with all three of our decks, or around it. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's the ban there.
Right, and this Echo is like pretty alright, but we banned the Fizz Samira instead. Interesting.
Yeah.
That is really weird. Like, I don't know the deck makeup much into Tristana, but I haven't seen anyone ban Fizz Samira with Tristana in the lineup. And then you've also got, Echo, which is supposed to be good into it. So maybe you're more comfortable versing the other ones, but that ban feels so weird. But at the same time, you just ban the Fizz Samira, which might be a bit more understandable because you have the Nasus, but
Yeah. It's hard because Fizz Samira clearly, I think it's the deck to beat, or like the deck to top. I think it's the story of the day. I think everyone brought Samira. So I think banning it and just saying, yeah, I don't want to deal with that, totally reasonable.
right. And we are into this game now. We do actually see this Nasus deck a little bit of a hand. we have something going for it. We do have the Rock Bear and the Vault. Just something you kind of want though is like maybe a board. A board would be very nice, but Soul Cleave being cheap as tips really will make this a lot easier to kind of just like curve out, make that threat of like this board being impactful not a thing, because hey, it removes that Maya, and removing Maya is going to be really a slow down for TKG because hey, you can't really cheat out mana, and that's always a good thing when you can.
Yeah, absolutely. We're building a board. We're curving out perfectly from the vault side. This is I think this is exactly what we want. And like you said, we'll hit this Mare with the Soul Cleave. We won't be able to cheat mana. I think the Nasus deck is off to a great early start.
Yep. Yeah, it didn't look great at first, but that Soul Cleave just reels it back in. Oh, not only that, but this this double rock bear, I don't know if it's great. Like maybe we actually just vault here.
Yeah, I would expect we vault here and we'll just have Nasus on board next turn, a turn early. He'll only be a 4/4, or I guess he'll be a 5/5. Because we slayed the Mare and we'll slay our rock bear. And we'll into these units, he's just gonna get massive.
And this 5/5 in general, like even though it just comes to the masses right now. Like this is the beauty of this deck is because it pops out and then Vaults of Helia actually hits off that. It works almost so naturally to a point where like it's crazy that no one thought about this earlier. Like the way this works is so cool that like
Yeah.
for people who try and test out decks and interactions, this is probably the most creative one I've seen for a while that makes Vaults of Helia something that's been wanting to be meta defining or meta and somewhat in the meta, and it finally has. And like, oh, I could just go on about it almost the whole time because Vaults of Helia is so awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool to see this card have a meta deck. I think this is the most popular deck on ladder right now. It's really, really, really exciting to see, and I'm really interested to see how represented it is at this weekend's event.
And it's really funny with the rotation of how the kind of how things happen with like the Undying package. A lot of the stuff that kind of killed things kind of got rotated out. Like, and then you don't actually have the typical Volta Helia stuff to kind of go for it. That it allows you to kind of, you know, make it more of a package of a sense. And like this just being what it is right now is great. And something is what it is basically AVG Noxus, going 2-0 against BPS. Looking out for that one. Anyone who have Noxus in your Swiss pick'ems must be happy, but they take it over a favorite. And ABG Noxus almost always having a bad season when they started, finally getting back into it and winning games, so that's great to see. But let's get back into this game state here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyone seen any sheep around here? I lost mine.
And this game state is looking good for Tagonzali. Like
Yeah.
at 6/6, what can you really do, right? Like there is some stuff you can do. Like sure, we don't have the best hand, and maybe this King's Court might be a tiny bit slow, but you could have a bit of time here. Like there is like some justice to it where King's Court, maybe you play a lot of units, you can maybe play your Bandle Gunners, and you could actually go for lethal. Like we did see it against Chip, where if there is a chance, you stick the King's Court, you play all this stuff, you get like I don't know, like 5 prize fights, and you can like also get the Bandle Gunners to be 0 mana. That actually would get you to hit like certain ranges here of a lethal. You just need a it's tough. You need to play 6 units, but it's a line at least.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a line.
It's weird to say because it seems so like improbable almost, but it's like your best line to actually go for because when you hit stalemate lines like stalemate boards like this, or you're definitely going under than your opponent. You have to really think, what is my best way to get around that? And that is the King's Court. But that is literally also another reason why people play this deck, because there's just so much more potential for stuff like this to happen. And just this Detonator coming out, though, is another reason why people opt for this. And you wish that it could be a crazier board swipe, but removing 3 is enough. We also get Siphoning Strike here, which is going to be, allowing Nessus to actually flip and get Nessus kind of get through a lot of these things here, especially getting this King's Court with TKG not finding any ping throughout the game, and they are not phased because they have the right negation in hand as well, and that is why this deck is one of the most played at the moment, because you do some crazy stuff like this, also Helium 4, and it gets somewhat kind of wild.
Yeah, this is exactly what you want the deck to do. It curved out perfectly. That Desinata got Nasus above to a 10-10, and then we top deck the Nasus to Siphoning Strike. Really exactly what you want to do. Yeah, I like TKG holding this prize fight back, maybe trying to play it afterwards. Try and potentially ping this spell shield off. But we are in a rough spot on TKG's side.
Yeah, well, honestly, what a line, and that's why some people are opting out for Designator, because you turn into this weird, board-based deck that just has an absolute tempo swing, and that is kind of what Designator has slightly changed into. It's not really a darkness card much anymore, and even when it gets played in like Vega Nora, it is actually just for tempo swings or maybe a removal, and now TKG is kind of stunned. You have some lines here, sure. You can actually double Terra and play your Bandle Gunners, but look at this. You just have another Nasus picked up from that Rekindler, and this is Yordles want to attack, but they can't really attack with any type of damage here, and they can't really get through with this impact at all, so this is a sad side, and this is, not fully game yet, but you can definitely make it with a potential here.
Yeah.
Especially because we get Volta Helia. That would have the Rekindler, right? Because we don't have another 8 mana one, so we just get another Designator, and that should just wipe out these spell shields.
So yeah, they have to do this if they want to get the Desinata next turn, because it has to be the strongest ally that dies. So we have to clear our Desinata with the Hate Spike, so that Rekindler dies, giving us this second Desinata, clearing I guess only the 1/1, but pinging the spell shield off.
Yep. And instead, they understand they don't really need to rush things here. If they can kind of get the Bandle Gunners out, they might be okay. And, sure, you could do that, but something really interesting where it changes a lot of things is, this court, I wish it could do anything, but it can't. And TKG understands that, so they do just surrender, and there it is. They do lose the first game. I was gonna say that I was being hopeful. I was like, oh, maybe you could King's Court, find another Bandles Gunner, and do that crazy play like we were talking about earlier. But that's only 3 prize fights, and then you just lose because you don't have a board. But Tigers really understood that and did really well, like you're saying, hate spiking, understand how the deck works, and now we get into it, looking at this mulligan phase.
Yeah, and here we are with the mirror. This is looking like pretty decent hands to start from both sides here. TKG looks like they have this Buster Shot in hand that it won't be on as of yet, based on our hand, but will likely be on pretty early, try and trade down the board.
And so, okay, I haven't really played much Tristana or actually seen the mirror much in action, but I assume what you kind of go for in this matchup is a lot of Owlcats, and maybe Maya is kind of the decider.
Yeah, I mean, you really just want to get like, yeah, Mayor's great. You want to spam as many units as possible. Get your Vandal Gunners as cheap as possible, and just, prize fight ping or prize fight for as much impact damage on one turn.
That makes that makes a lot of sense. I feel like Maya makes a more standard play. It's just like, because you have to think, like, if we have mirrored hands here, then we kind of run into a scenario where if my grandfather into like a 1 mana Owlcat, it's not really doing much. And
Yeah.
them recognizing that, just going for the mayor and trying to find that value out, because the thing with TKG's hand is they have some substance to deal with this mayor if it was a mirrored situation, and it is. But hey, talking about mirrored situations, literally both top decks are mayors here.
Yeah.
Wow.
What's this?
That is, that is, yeah. I honestly, what a coincidence.
Yeah.
But this is like kind of the perfect scenario for both players as well. This is like hitting almost exactly what you want. The Targon's Volley, I feel like, has a slight advantage, almost. Like, if I was Boulevard right now and I was on the YouTubes, I'd be like, oh, advantage bar to Targon's Valley, which, if you didn't know, there's actually Aegis reviews, which is pretty interesting to watch. Just a little side note there. But the thing is, like, you also getting that free to be elusive and just push damage makes a lot of difference in this matchup. And, like, I was saying previously in game states before, is where you can't really get through into the board, you need to think of ways to get over it, and that's exactly what Targon's Valley is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't have the elusive to match here, so going for making their elusive fearsome 3/3 and just trying to go over the top. I really like that play there.
Yeah, like, and both players just have great refill as well. I feel like maybe I want to say maybe Targon's Valley has like slightly better refill, just because you can play the mayor again, and then it allows you to play Nah this turn, or it allows you to kind of just play your Owlcats if you want, and then you kind of speed up faster into this battle gunners. And with I feel like if you get your battle gunners out earlier, it's just gonna be really annoying to like slow down the game and just like push through that extra damage. It's gonna get really awkward, and you just have like quite a few great things here where this looks pretty nice for Targon's Valley.
Yeah, I would say Targon's Valley is in a much more favored spot. We have very good refill. This Bandle Gunners is going to be very cheap next turn if we play this Gnar and this Owlcat. We'll have a full board. We could maybe even overwrite our grandfather Fae with the Owlcat there, not the Owlcat, the Bandle Gunners there, and just be very very wide. We don't have any prize fights in hand to push that extra impact damage, but we will have a much bigger board than their opponent.
Yeah, and probably gonna be mayoring as well. I think maybe you just utilize that to try and go for these Owlcats as much as possible, which yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I do like the Buster Shot being able to come out as well, or maybe not. But I maybe you're just going for the Gnar instead, which is also pretty nice.
Yeah.
And TKG really, at least they've got Tristana though. Like, maybe sure it doesn't really be as impactful, but it allows your Swarm to get better. And allowing your Swarm to get better and hoping that they don't have like prize fight into the ping here can make you get back into this game, because like this Tristana is still a big unit, and whenever you try and like trade through and getting one value trade ish, it's kind of awkward. Sure, you might not want it to go down to one, but it's a possibility.
Yeah. I really like playing this Bandle Gunners from the from Targon's Valley side, understanding that if TKG has their one of Buster Shot, or one of their two Buster Shots, excuse me, they can just slap the weapon on the other elusive and just kind of go in.
It's
On it and on.
I wonder if Highlands Valley even not opted to like play the mayor there just so they could actually have the battle gunners into the deny, but I feel like there's no reason to really have that as a potential. Like, it's not really worth, and doing a trade like this now allows Tristana to be impactful as ever. You're literally just probably going to play as many units as possible, just trying to make this big as possible and try and speed through it. Right now, this changes to a game of pace where you get into these weird situations where not either player is doing much, and you have to kind of do something. And the shepherd comes out. Sadly, we don't get an overwhelm, but these impacts are going to be really, no pun intended, impactful.
Yeah, absolutely. We're built like TKG is building up this board. It's going to be pretty difficult for Targon's Valley to survive this impact damage.
Right? And just utilizing this weapon as well, something which is weapon masters are nice for pushing, this impact, making it good, having this unit still staying alive, and like it's weird to say, but you kind of want your units to stay alive here because you are running out of them, which is not something you say much in Tristana mirrors. And the Gnar finally comes out, but it is confronted with a blast of explosions, and Gnar sadly can't say any gibberish to this, but just accept the fate of getting absolutely demolished.
So we could say no while puzzling signpost to this, right? And it looks like we do. I'm not sure how much I love this. You know, the Tristana didn't hit the right weapon, right? So they don't have overwhelm, but it is interesting to potentially keep that to blow up an overwhelm weapon.
How I yeah, I think it's like important because you do actually need the board. Like,
Yeah,
it's weird to say, but you need the board and you need the draw there as well, and it
yeah.
doesn't really have much use otherwise. Everything is cheap. The only way you can really utilize it is on like a prize fight turn when you have the sling, and otherwise than that, there's not really much. And like Tiger's Valley did pull up a Tristana there, so you can kind of now combat with the idea of what TKG is going for. But maybe TKG is just too fast enough now. They do have a potential of 9 damage here, and you clear majority of this board. It's like it's kind of scary. They hold it back the maze, but looking back at this, right, Spider-Man, or the aftermath of the swing, like, how bad is it actually for Tigon's Valley now that you picked up the Tristana? Is it actually that horrible?
No, now that we've picked up this Tristana, right? Like I think it's pretty decent. The thing I didn't realize when I was saying that I would have liked to potentially hold back that puzzling signpost to blow up an equipment instead of deny the spell was that Gnar was leveling and putting vulnerable on this Tristana. So we're just going to be able to clear it next turn. And we'll be able to like potentially stabilize.
Okay, so like, does Tigon's Valley ever have a way to win? Like, so if they play uh Tristana here, it's probably leveled. You'd hope so.
Yeah.
Tristana into another Grumble Slug, that's 2 impacts plus another, that's 3. Band of Gun is a 6. Uh, Maya would have to get like something cheeky here, like you know, would something like the 7 mana 4 impact do it? Probably not.
No, I don't think we'd
Or
be able to play it unless
you'd
we do it
put
next. Like we do it. So right, like we probably want to play this Tristana this turn. Try and kill um this Tristana with our Tristana. I think we'd rather do that then try and send the Gnar after it. We can push better overwhelm damage going after something else with the Gnar.
Hold on. We have 4 in the elusive. Then we have Tristana with another. We also have this shot to actually get rid of the elusive here. So yeah, we have 4. We have another 3 on board. That's 7. Tristana is 2 plus another one played of a unit that is 10. And then you just need to play one more unit in Pie Shot, and that's actually lethal. So why are we not playing Tristana? What's the? Are you just scared of like prize fight stuff and you're going for other lines? But this feels like you're in a weird situation with time where if you can go for a lethal, you probably go for it.
Yeah, I'm really, really curious why we're really, really tanking this Tristana, and now we don't. I like that this comes out, but I'm interested to see why we were holding that back.
But we just missed like damage. we could have grumble slugged and then we had 2 impact.
Yeah.
Because now you're dealing 4, you're dealing another 4, so that is 8. You're only really doing 8 plus that 9, and now you actually have to give them like you can actually give them some time to do stuff. And like, oh, this that the shot's coming out, and you can still push more damage though. Like if you made it early, you also have this 2-1 to be played. Like there is a few things here where like you're still fine, and something like Prize Fight would have been a great top deck if this was like more buffed up, but it can be on the Bandle Gunners here. So is that the perfect lethal? This
might be just enough because we can also send that prize fight after whoever's blocking Gnar, to not only push an extra 3 overwhelm damage, but to not only to push an extra 3 impact damage, but to push even more overwhelm damage.
Your esteemed mayor has arrived. Has the battle started?
Yeah, that will actually be lethal here. Targon's Valley, even though they don't officially know it because we know the hand of TKG, Targon's Valley does find the top deck from Prize Fight with this Grandfather Fae buffing up the Tristana as much as possible and their board. And you've got a few things to do here, but we know this is it. Didn't need to go down to a game 3. They push as much damage as possible, gets ready for this prize fight load, and just a few more actions, and they are gonna be going to playoffs now with a tight set and a scary season for them, but they show them why they are here to stay.
Yeah, this was played, pretty well by both sides here. I like the top deck prize fight really came in clutch. It was exactly what they needed to pull it off here. With the mayor, they might have been able to find a different line, but that prize fight really was perfect lethal.
Yep, and that's literally it. There is they're trying to really work it out. They're like, oh, how am I not going to die now? They are theoretically at 1, but Targon's Valley does have the prize fight, does have the high toss, could even be cheeky with it, but you don't want to lose to something like a random signpost, and this will be game nonetheless. Targon's Valley now just has to play it, trying to be safe for any potential problem that might occur, but pretty sure they know they have it in the bag. TKG, even waiting, they're like, hey, I know that you know that you'll win. Just take me out of my misery, and they have it. Prize Prize comes out, and this is game. They take it 2-0 against TKG, and they will be going to the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely well done by Targon's Valley, who we spent, a good amount of time at the top of the broadcast talking about how good their prep is, how exciting they are, how they like to do different things, try a bunch of different stuff, which we saw by running those 2 Vagars in the Nasus deck, and it comes in clutch. We saw that prep work out in their favor.
Right, and a really exciting amount of games today. Really close action. Targon's Valley, probably the slowest ones to actually think through their plays out of all the games we saw, but like, because that felt like a 3-game match, but they just absolutely demolished. They took their time to the point where they knew the best lines of what to do and just capitalized on it. And I felt like maybe other teams weren't really trying to do that as much as possible, and because of that, they might have not had playoffs. But you know who did? Targon's Valley, and even though we didn't get to see some spice, maybe we do into a more King of the Hill format, which can definitely happen.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, at the start of the season, I believe Conch promised us a Pike Galio deck. We still have not seen that. Very interested to see if that comes in during the King of the Hill format.
But you know, it's kind of wild because like constantly say those things and he just does it to rile people up. But we are into another game of Dust Peddlers who are up against the other TKG here, and man, this is kind of sad. Like, man, out of Pandemonium right now looks sad, and they are trying to push as much damage, but not really getting through. And this Shen here is looking pretty decent. If this flips, I'm pretty sure you're kind of just winning. And yeah, they have exact lethal with the Jarvan being top decked. This
Yeah.
means that it is actually this game off the bat. A quick, swift 2-0, that 2-1 that we didn't really get to see about. And TKG has to just say, hey, I'm out of here. And unfortunately, both TKG teams are out. And for playoffs, it's Dust Peddlers, one of the people or teams who looked absolutely overlooked, people that couldn't really, have a name for themselves. And they're just saying, hey, we are getting into playoffs. You don't believe in us. We believe in ourselves. And look at that. They do make it and taking out a heavy hitter nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Dusk Peddlers they're a lot of like ladder and tournament grinders, great players, but definitely not a team that was like hyped up or talked about all season. See them get through TKG, make it to play-ins. It's great work from them.
Maybe we get to see another game as well, but if we don't, because we will be saying game 3, maybe that wasn't actually a 2-0. Maybe there was a visual on that. So there was a visual on that. Look at that. Like we
So
were
yeah.
hyping Dust Peddlers up, and it was just a prank, everyone. Look at that. Like we're just talking about Dust Peddlers haven't actually made up. TKG is still in. That's a pretty funny haha. We got you pretty good there, but now TKG has somewhat of like a game that we saw earlier today in round 2 of a hand. Getting these Furies out not too fast, a Powder Pandemonium, and then Dust Peddlers on the other hand is pretty high octane.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like they are off to a great start there. They've got all of their 1-drops. They've got their not their Powder Pandemonium, their monkey business. But TKG does have the Powder Pandemonium, which could swing the game.
Yeah, but they also need to kind of have units and plunders, and like monkey business kind of works. It's really funny. You could opt to like stop this, but it just doesn't feel great. I feel like alternatively, what you could do is you could actually hold this up and then guile next turn because you don't really have good plunder procs.
Yeah.
And that might be honestly the best thing because right now you have a lot of gas, but you don't really have anything to do with it, and you need to kind of get something going. And unless we get a top deck here, this hand that looked like it's going to be absolutely taking you to the races might just be, a foot on the brake for a turn too late.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Both of these are just like not the hands you want to see for like opposite reasons. You know, on Dust Peddler's side, we have all units, but no plunder activators. And on TKG's side, we just have no units at all other than, you know, we're going to get a monkey this turn and a monkey next turn.
Yeah, so blocking there kind of goes two ways because yeah, sure you do stop their potential way to kind of like outburst or plunder, but TKG doesn't really have the hand for that, and they do have to actually warning shot here, and like there's some leeway, but you just lose out your potential to kind of go for your own game plan, and if you're not really doing that, they could just be slightly too ahead here.
Yeah. And here we have to play an unprocced Elegant Edge just to try and get our proc next turn.
Which is something, like, it still works out. I mean, you probably, oh wow, but the warning shot top deck makes us feel kind of worse. Like,
yeah.
It's tough to say because, like, sure, maybe you do want to, like, optimally just, like, play for that top deck. What is really the fearsome blockers of this deck? It would be, it'd have to be, like, Elegant Edge being procced or, like, a Witcher, but you might have an understanding that their hand is kind of not proc heavy with like plunder cards because of how they were playing last turn.
Yeah. I would have to agree with that. I think, you know, with having, what, 9 plunder triggers to top deck between Stylish Shot, Warning Shot, and Samira, I think it might have been a little better to opt to play more patiently and see the top deck than playing that unprocced Elegant Edge. But, you know, it could have been worse. We always could have done that Elegant Edge line this turn.
Yep. And this fizz will have to be played here, and even though you can't really block the Fury, you're probably happy to not. Like, you've got some decent trades into, and you also, you know, this is weird because like I'm trying to figure out like the best thing of what we're gonna do, and it's just like powder Pandemonium and then clear their board, and then Dust Peddlers really have to hope that they kind of top deck their own, and if you're not really killing off their whole board and like also killing them, that subsequential powder Pandemonium of top deck gets scary. We saw it kind of, you know, the previous round before, and it really does change things. And TKG, if they do that, they do have some sense and some chance to get back into this game, and this powder Pandemonium might just be it here.
Yeah. Oh, and the
Wow,
second
and you
powder
find
Pandemonium
another
off
one.
the top, yeah. There's just no reason not to rip this now.
It's like, yeah, it's a loaded barrel. Like, whenever you find 2 Pandemoniums, you're just like, I'm just gonna throw this willy-nilly. Because
Yep.
the amount of sheer power and damage that it has is just absolutely insane. And BFGB, you know, this Marlin, these Big Fish Gaming players were kind of looked as like underdogs throughout this whole season here. And if you see in the bottom right, they do take out OTKV, and that means they are through into playoffs. A Big Fish team does make it through, but back into this game, and this is some solid damage here. Even though if this Fizz blocks, it's a still 7, and well, that's we get Elegant Edge off the board, and we just play Powder Pandemonium, and that's 6. That is just lethal. Like, we can probably just kill them anyway, but overall, this is scary. Oh, it's 1 off, sorry.
But yeah, this is quite scary here.
And Dust Peddlers finds absolutely nothing. They have to pass. TKG probably going to pass as well. There is some sense to actually just take your time and figure out how many plunders they've done, just so you know that this Powder Pandemonium is like guaranteed. Because there is like an option where you can like maybe play. Wow, you get another one. I was gonna say,
yeah.
There's an option where you can Fury here, but yeah, they just take the open, understand that there is nothing to deal with that, and Powder Pandemonium gonna be it. We kind of gave you a bit of a, you know, bit of a sad sad state last time and say Dust Petals won it, but it was just a visual glitch. And TKG now in this actual third round, they do win it out, and they will be going to playoffs, making it, some sweetness for TKG. Probably slightly the lesser team out of the bunch, I would say. I would say maybe people looked at the other TKG being more the heavy hitter because you have, someone like Wicca, you have Douglas,
Yep.
you have, these people who have a lot of recognition and top cuts or high ladder finishes. But TKG, this version with Igloo and Godjaw shows that we can still do it, and they will be going to playoffs here with a nice, clean set from them.
Yeah, absolutely. They, that Samira Fizmira was played excellently by them. I think they got the benefit of drawing all three Powder Pandemoniums, but they knew when to take it. They knew to clear their board. They played to their outs, looked great on their side, and I'm happy for them to move on.
Right. And we are probably going to just check if anyone is, still going through. But one thing I do want to just mention here is one of our sponsors, Metafy. Metafy is a coaching service that kind of helps a lot of the tournament scene because it helps by basically giving the opportunity to fund coaches from the competitive scene in general and making it tighter to the point where some, people who are more casual to the game might want to be getting into a tournament like this or, maybe the opens and need a bit of help and want to kind of shine. Metafy is probably one of the best services for that. You have great people like Yang Zero, Grandpa Roji, the whole mix, what am I even, who can really help elevate your game. And because of that, they do also just help sponsor this to try and, help elevate the competitive scene. So I'm pretty thankful for them to kind of, help out. And even though I haven't got any coaching, I would be really happy to kind of, get coached by one of my, one of my probably has 20 million things he could probably say about the game to a point where you probably never even comprehended. And people like that with a sense where, maybe you are even a decent player, but they could elevate your game to a point that's even, insane. It's a really nice thing to have at your disposal, and Metafy is a great thing to do that. But we probably will be going to a break just to sort out maybe another game or the bracket. Um, uh, well, never mind. I just got heard from the producer that we have no more games. So instead of going to the break, we'll be breaking forever, as in I'll be sending you all off. So what a great, time this was. Spider Mansion, first time I've casted with you. How did you feel about watching this play-ins, and are you excited for the playoffs next week?
Yeah, I am. I'm ecstatic for playoffs. I think a lot of great teams moved on from our bracket here. We saw the TKG win. We saw, we mentioned in the upper bracket, a lot of those teams that moved on. We pointed out in the bottom right of the screen that we saw the Big Fish Gaming move on. It's going to be a really exciting playoffs. I can't wait to see how it goes.
Right. I'm also really excited. Like you're saying, we have some really strong teams, and don't know who I'll be casting with next week, but nonetheless, I'll be here, and I hope to see you all back here as well. So yeah, we'll see you all next week, and stay tuned for then because we will be sending off for playoffs. So catch you later.
Right.
kiss, sweet like poison. You know you make me reckless. I'll run, but you are friction. Your touch feels like heaven. You make me hate all my sins. You are my religion. My religion. I have a million reasons to leave you, but I have a billion reasons to keep you.